guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about a case that is by no means brand new, but it has recently gone to trial, so I figured we could talk about it now that there is more information or alleged information. So the case that we're discussing is about a cheerleader named Brooke Skylar Richardson who allegedly killed her child. Richardson, now 20, is on trial facing charges of abuse of a corpse, aggravated murder, endangering children, involuntary manslaughter, and tampering with evidence. She's accused of killing her newborn shortly after giving birth and burying the baby without seeking help or telling anyone. According to Nippon, who is the assistant Warren County prosecutor, Richardson searched online for how to get rid of a baby while pregnant. She's also accused of sending a text message to her mother, relieved her quote-unquote belly is back shortly after she gave birth. I'm sorry, and this is not me just drawing conclusions, but if she effectively did say that she's so happy that her belly is back after her child either died or was a stillborn, because that's also up for debate, that's a very strange thing to be excited about, considering that you've just dealt, in the end, whether she killed it or not, she still dealt with a death. So I don't understand that. Whose first thought is like, oh yeah, my belly looks good again? I am literally speechless with how happy I am my belly is back. Oh my god. Richardson allegedly texted, referring to weight loss. Defense attorney Charles M. Rickers argued that Richardson explained she did one search while looking for self-abortion information. She reportedly claimed she never did further research after the initial search. Those texts we now see after May 7 were Skylar focusing on the only thing she thought she could control at the time, which was her body. Now, I can understand feeling out of control, especially if a tragedy does occur. It's hard for me to really trust someone who hides a pregnancy and then the child happens to be a stillborn and you still don't say anything and just bury your child in your backyard without saying anything. It all just seems suspicious, right? Because together with the text message of being happy that your body is back out where it was before, and not even telling the father of the child that you're pregnant, to not even telling anyone that you're going through pregnancy, and even after the traumatic potential event of delivering a stillborn, you still don't say anything, and on the contrary, you're happy about your body. It seems like a lot of very suspicious behaviors put together, and that's not me saying like that it wouldn't be scary to get pregnant at, I think it was 17. I'm not saying that wouldn't be scary. I would be scared to tell my parents that if I were 17 and pregnant, but at the same time, I think I'd probably be more scared to hide it, because in the end, you know, if it's your first child, you still don't really know what exactly you're in for, the transformations of your body, what you need to do to take care of your child, and also the small detail that in 9 months, your child is going to be born, and the assumption is that it's going to be born alive. Now, tragically, it potentially was a stillborn, but I'm also thinking, what was the plan if the child was born healthy? That's also what's suspicious. You're just gonna hide it for 9 months, and then what if your child is born healthy? Was there an ulterior plan? Like a malicious plan? Or were you just planning on dropping it on everyone? That also is curious to me. Nippon argued that the only person who knew Richardson was pregnant was Dr. Andrew Phillip at Hilltop OBGYN. Nippon said Richardson's mother took the girl to the doctor to see about birth control pills in April 2017, but when Dr. Andrew told Richardson she was pregnant, she begged and pleaded with him not to tell her parents. She kept repeating she can't have this baby and couldn't tell anyone she was pregnant, Nippon said. She never scheduled that follow-up appointment. Staff began trying to reach out to her to get her back in. Brooke never returned those calls. Nippon argued that Richardson was told she had around 10 more weeks in the pregnancy and thought she had additional time for prenatal care. However, the doctor's estimate was apparently off. She gave birth to a full-term baby 11 days later. Okay, I don't know what laws are in place for confidentiality with doctors when someone isn't 18 yet, but I have to say that at a certain point, I do feel like the doctors really should have stepped in, because if there's someone saying, please don't tell my parents, like I can't have this child, my initial thought as a doctor would be like, okay, she needs to tell her parents, you know, in her own time, rather than some stranger just being like, hey, your daughter's 17 and pregnant. But at the same time, it's also like, if this person doesn't show up for like their scheduled appointments, and you also know that they didn't want their parents to know, maybe that's a certain point where the baby might be in danger and you should step in. Like I said, I don't know the laws. Maybe that's something that you're not allowed to do. Richardson's ex-boyfriend, Trey Johnson, 21, took the stand and said the defendant never told him she was pregnant, never told him she gave birth, and never told him the baby died. He testifies he didn't know anything about the situation until a detective approached after the infant died and asked him for a buccal swab. Kippen said Richardson's relationship with Johnson was short-lived. They dated around a month or so before she reportedly broke up with him, blocked him on social media, and began dating another boy. The buccal swab confirmed Johnson was the father. I also don't understand the point of not telling the father, because look, I can understand being scared of telling your parents, and I can understand being scared of telling your significant other or your ex-significant other, but at the same time, it's like, you probably want, you know, your quote-unquote partner in crime, well, I probably shouldn't use that term. You'd probably want to inform the person who is still responsible for half of your child's DNA, this is something we have to deal with, right? Especially because they probably are the person who could relate to you the most in terms of they're part of this too. Now, that doesn't mean he wouldn't be a jerk about it. We don't know. But at the same time, it's like the first thing I would do if I found myself pregnant, if I was young and unmarried, would still be to tell the father. Even if you're not together anymore, you could at least try to see if they could be supportive or at least helpful or help you find, you know, like look into options, something, but to just not say anything. But I still think a parent deserves to know. How did the baby die? On May 5th, 2017, Brooke gave birth alone in her bathroom hours after going to prom with her boyfriend, Brandon. From the beginning, Richardson claimed her daughter, who the family later named Annabelle, was stillborn. A coroner was unable to determine a cause of death, but prosecutors said Richardson killed and buried her baby in an attempt to move on with her life without the responsibilities of caring for an infant. Rickers disagreed. This case was about a massive rush to judgment. Rickers told the jury, arguing that Richardson never killed her child since the child was stillborn. Okay, so I really desperately would love to believe that all of this was just a big misunderstanding and that Richardson wasn't planning on killing the child and didn't want to get rid of it and just move on and live the rest of her life. That being said, the information we have here doesn't really make me feel confident in believing Richardson, simply because, like I said before, you can hide your pregnancy for the 9 months, but what would she have done if the baby came out healthy? Like, would she just tell her parents then? Would she just tell the father then? That's the thing that I'm confused about, because if you're gonna hide it for that long, what's gonna happen when it actually comes? And together with the text messages of, oh, I'm so glad I have my belly back, and also going to prom with someone, not even that person knowing, and that same night you just go home and have your child, and then you don't tell anyone that it's stillborn, and you just bury it and try to move on and don't say anything. It just seems like a lot of very damning information. Like, even if we want to assume she had the child's best interest at heart, not going back to the appointments, I mean, like, it's okay to be scared, but also there's someone else's health at risk. So I don't know, I just have a really hard time believing she's entirely innocent. That's not to say she's entirely guilty, it's too hard to say here. I'm very suspicious. Richardson said she cared for the baby girl for around an hour, but the infant wouldn't open her eyes. She claimed she then buried baby Annabelle in her family's backyard between 2 trees, according to court documents. Nippen said she did nothing at all that would suggest she tried to care for the infant. Upon going into labor, she didn't call 911, she didn't try to go to the hospital, she didn't run downstairs to her mother and father. Nippen argued she didn't wake up her brother, who was just across the hall. Yeah, and I agree with that, because as much as you might be scared, like I said, to tell your parents, it's also like, in that moment, you're really putting, first of all, your own life at risk, and then the baby's life at risk. So in that moment, I feel like, at least as an outsider who's never dealt with this, that would overshadow my fear of telling my parents, and I'd call 911 or at least my brother to tell him to call or to take you to the hospital. I don't know, it just seems very bizarre. Even when confronted with the birthing process itself, she was determined to keep her secret. Finally, when the moment of truth was upon her, she took her newborn's life and disposed of that body in the yard behind their home. Authorities eventually found out about the baby when Richardson allegedly confessed after her doctor pressed her on where her infant was. The prosecution also alleged that Richardson tried to burn the infant after forensic anthropologist Dr. Elizabeth Murray previously indicated that the baby's bones looked charred. Murray later recanted her assessment after noticing the bones looked so different from my July visit to my August visit. Rickers argued that although Dr. Murray told authorities she changed her assessment, police and prosecution largely ignored her. Honestly, I would ask for a second opinion about the bones at this point, because if at one point you're like, yeah, they're charred, and then after you're like, oh no, they look so different, they don't look charred anymore, maybe find other doctors, like second and third opinions, to say, did Richardson try to burn this baby? That being said, just because this one doctor said that that's what they thought initially and then recanted it, it doesn't mean that we're just going to take the initial one and completely ignore that they recanted it. It's important to note that they recanted it. And I don't know why they didn't ask for a second or third opinion, because it really is useless if she's like, yeah, it's charred, no, it's not charred. Now we just have no idea. What happens when that doctor who made this horrible mistake changes her mind and tells everyone I was wrong, the bones weren't burnt? What happened? The police didn't hit a reset button. The prosecutors didn't hit a reset button. They disregard all truth that does not fit into their story, and that's why we're here today. I don't think necessarily you'd have to hit a reset button, but I think you should just say, as of now, there's no evidence to say that it's burned, and then just hire other doctors to look into it and not tell them anything and just say, okay, what do you make of these bones? That's it. You don't have to reset everything, because the evidence that there is so far, even the text messages, the not telling anyone, all of this doesn't paint a favorable picture for Richardson. On the contrary, it makes her look very suspicious, if not guilty. Okay, so on this website, and this was updated 15 minutes ago, there is the video interview of Skylar where she is appealing to her parents for help, and then apparently she confesses, but then her lawyers say that she was being stressed or coerced. So I'll link that down below. It's in an article, so click on the article link and then the video is there. I would put it in mine, but it's from Fox News and I know they'll claim me pretty much immediately. I strongly suggest watching it because I do think it helps paint, you know, a more detailed picture as to what's going on. In my personal opinion, there is something amiss here. I don't really believe that she had positive intentions, simply because there are so many moments where she could have asked for help, or she could have at least gone to the doctor for the checkups to make sure her child was okay, but she didn't go to any of the follow-ups. I just can't really explain that away to myself. It just does not seem plausible that she was planning on keeping her child and really caring for her child. That being said, I also wouldn't assume that she wanted her child to die either. Based on what we know now, this all seems like extreme irresponsibility and potentially maybe narcissism, because of the whole belly obsession. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think there was malevolent intent the whole time? Do you think it's more nuanced than that? Let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.